Hello everyone and welcome to the video note for exercise 3.8. In this video we're going to sort three integers. So we're going to obtain three numbers from the user, and these can be in any order that they like, but then our program is going to sort the numbers into numeric order, and then we're going to display the numbers in that order. So with that, let's get started. In Eclipse I've created a new project called exercise 3.8. And we're going to add a new class to this. Now again, I'm going to follow my naming scheme, which is a little bit unusual, but I'm going to call this class exercise 3_8. So finish. The first thing we're going to do is, well, have a main method. So public static, excuse me, void main string array args. Okay, now we're going to obtain input from the user, so that means we need a scanner object to make it easy for us. So what we're going to do, instead of importing the class, what we can do is actually give the full path to it, which is another way of working with classes that are part of the Java SDK. So in this case, we're going to go java.util.scanner, call it input, equals new java.util.scanner. And again, we're reading from system.in, which is the keyboard. So now we've got our scanner object. What we need to do is tell the user what we want from them. So system.out.print enter three integers. And then we're going to read these in. So we're going to need three variables here. The first one is going to be called num1, and it's just going to be input.next int. Now what I'm going to do is copy this line of code twice, and then change the variable names to num2 and num3. So now at this point we have three variables that are each store an integer, and the integer they store depends on what the user entered. So now we need to do the swap, and there's three things we need to look for. The first one is whether number1 is greater than number2, because if it is, that means we need to swap those. So if number1 is greater than number2, then we're going to need to do the swap. Now to do the swap, we need a temporary variable. So int temp. And to start with, we're going to give this a value of num1. Now that we have the value that was in num1 stored somewhere, we can safely overwrite this variable. So num1 equals num2, and then num2 is equal to temp. So that's very important. Whenever we're trying to swap two variables around, we always need a temporary variable to store one of them while we do the swap. So there's our first condition. The second condition, well, what if number2 is greater than number3? Well, that means we need to swap those two around. So if number2 is greater than number3, again, we're going to need to do a swap. So we need a temp. So we'll make this equal to number2. Now, if you're wondering how we can get away with this, having two variables declared, both called temp, it has to do with the way the scope works. Because this variable was declared inside of this if block here, it only exists inside the if block. Okay, that's very important. So once we break out of this block, this temporary variable doesn't exist anymore. Same as down here, what we're doing is creating a new variable. It has nothing to do with this one up here. So just keep that in mind, because variable scope is one of those things that if you don't pay attention to it, it can bite you. So little bit of a sidetrack, but let's keep going. Now that we've got our temporary variable, we can do the swap. So num2 equals num3, num3 equals num2. Oh, sorry, temp. That's why we need the temporary variable. So finally, our last case is if number1 is greater than number2 again. Because we've swapped if we've swapped number3 and number2 around, there's a chance now that whatever is now in number2 is less than number1. So we need to do this same check again. So what I might do is just copy this and paste it down here. again, the only reason we'll ever have to do this is if we've swapped numbers 2 and 3. But with that, that's pretty much all the calculations we need. So let's print out the result. Oops. The sorted numbers are... Now what we're going to do here is do some string concatenation. Num1 plus an empty space plus num2 plus an empty space plus num3. And there we go. So let's run this now and see what happens. Run as Java application. Okay, enter 3 integers. Let's enter 45, 12, and 88. The sorted numbers are 12, 45, and 88. So that's working pretty well. What if they're in reverse order? So let's run this again. 99, 88, 66. This is the reason I'm doing this like this is to demonstrate how scanner works. You can enter 3 numbers either with any sort of white space separating them. So whether it be a new line, which is what I happened before I pressed enter, or a space. So if we do this, the sorted numbers are 66, 88, and 99. So that's working quite well. So with that, let's just summarize. What we did in this video was swap 3 integers. Now to do this, we had to have if conditions to decide which numbers actually needed to be swapped. And once we've decided which numbers needed to be swapped, remember that whenever we're swapping something, we need a temporary variable to store one of the numbers while we do the swap. So with that, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot.